अवतार मेहर बाबा
बाबा
की जय।
की जय।
अवतार मेहर
अवतार
बाबा
मेहर
की
बाबा
जय।
की जय।
अवतार मेहर
अवतार मेहर
बाबा की
बाबा
जय।
की जय।
जय बाबा। Over to you.
Jai Baba. Well, Jai Baba, everybody. Good morning. And my last talk, I ended with the incident of my accident in December 1964 and Baba's role in that. And then I mentioned that it took 3 or 4 months for me to make a full recovery from it. So by the time I had recovered, it was now getting into April of 1965. And in May, we were again going off to Guru Prasad again this time. So that's where I'll start. So as most of you probably know, in May in 1965, Baba had a darshan program in Pune, a 6-day darshan program. It was for 6 days from the 1st to the 6th of June. And on the first day, it was the official opening ceremony of the Pune Center. So it was at the Pune Center itself. Baba was there. And the remaining 5 days, the program moved to Guru Prasad, the backyard of Guru Prasad, the same location where the East-West gathering was had. So now, excuse me, we had been informed earlier that this program was being held and would we come, and my parents were asked to come as volunteers. So they said yes, they would go. And but they said that Merwan couldn't come because my annual university college exams were being normally would be held at the end of April, early May. So it was right at the time of the darshan program. So we got a response from Baba saying, that's fine. You two come and Mirwan can come after his exams. And then if you like, you can stay for the remainder of my stay in Guru Prasad till I go back to Mirasad. Well, that was an offer you really can't refuse. So we took it up. So, one of the things I didn't realize at the time, I don't know if my parents knew either because they didn't tell me. I certainly didn't hear it from them, was that after the 65 Darshan program, Baba went into a form of seclusion. It wasn't a very strict seclusion, but he was in seclusion. And because of that, everything was quiet. As in past visits, we were with him all day. We would get there at 8 and stay till about 4:35 in the afternoon. And our lunch would be at Guru Prasad in the afternoon. Dad and me with the men mandli and mom with the women mandli, and sometimes with Baba also. Mom would have lunch. But in previous visits, there was always a lot of activity, as I mentioned in my previous talks. There were quite a few people in the morning. There would be bhajan programs, Qawwali programs. Baba would give darshan on Sundays for about a month or two of his stay. So that would be hundreds of people would come. House visits. Um, close Baba lovers would give lunches, so we would have that. There would be ice cream parties. All this had gone now. In 1965, there was none of this. And there were also many and much less people there because, as I said, Baba was in seclusion. Now, it was really quiet at times. Initially, after the darshan, I got there after 3 or 4 days after the darshan program, tops a week after the darshan program was over. And if you had seen the film of the 65 darshan program, I think it's called The Ancient One. You would have seen that on the first day when Baba was in the Pune center, he was taken around the Pune center because they showed him the center, but he was in a lift chair all the time. He didn't walk. His hip joint was bothering him a lot at that time. So he didn't want to walk on it. So he was in a lift chair. But apart from that, if you have seen that movie, Baba looked fairly robust and healthy. He looked, you know, very nice. But when I got there 3 days or a week after the program was over, he looked really, really run down. He looked tired, he looked drained. His hip joint was bothering him so much that most often he would stay in his own bedroom. He wouldn't even come to Mandli Hall on the men's side. So, and as I said, there were not too many people. Initially, after the darshan program, there were some people still coming, and Baba allowed them. But as time progressed, there were less and less people. To the extent that there would maybe only be 5, 10 people in the morning with him. And in the afternoon, there would hardly be anybody. In the afternoon, really the only people who were there regularly would be Erach, Mirji, uh, Pendu or Aloba when they had some time from their duties, because normally they would be wrapped up in their duties at Guru Prasad. So if they had some free time, they would come and sit. And my dad and myself. Bhauji was the other man mandli over there with Baba and Guru Prasad, but he was wrapped up in writing his books by that time. So you never saw him at all except for lunch. So it was like that. Now, many people have asked me, says, well, if nothing was going on, what did you do? How did you pass the time there? You were there like 6 weeks or whatever, 6, 7 weeks. What happened? Nothing happened, really, to tell you the truth. It was very, very quiet. It was very quiet, very intimate. But there's always something going on with Baba. Even in seclusion, somebody sends a letter, they have a problem, this is going on, there's something in Mirazat that needs to be attended to. So they ask Baba. In Mirabad, there's always something or the other going on. So it was never that Baba had nothing to do. There was always something or the other going. And my dad and I would sit and listen, and we would just, be there in his presence. One of the major things I remember that was going on at that time, that Baba was planning a tour of India in 1966, the next year. It was going to be a 40-day tour of India where he would give darshan at different places. And he had decided to take 40 people with him. So it would be not only the Mandli, some of the Mandli, but also some of his close ones. So discussions on that were ongoing all the time, what places to go to, who to select. Baba made the selection, all that was also one of the main things that was going on all the time. But apart from that, there was really very quiet. And so in the afternoons when we were, I mean, I tried to recollect even earlier that in 1965, did we ever play cards with Baba? And I think we did maybe 2 or 3 times, 4 times in his bedroom, but it wasn't anywhere near like the games we used to play with him earlier when it was loud and everybody, really back and forth. It was very quiet. And then Baba was really not interested. And then he would throw the cards away and say, now enough. And so it was very, very quiet. Absolutely like night and day difference between the two previous visits and this visit. So in the afternoon, um, Baba would have the newspaper read to him. The newspaper would always come to, because Pendu was very fond of the news. And Pendu also liked to keep track of the cricket scores. He was a great cricket fan. So Baba allowed the newspaper to be brought every day. And then Baba would have it read to him. So in the afternoon, he asked, since my dad was there, he told my dad, why don't you read the newspaper to me? So dad would read the newspaper to him. And about 2 weeks before we were about the end of our stay, my father, Ari, gets a cable from his father, my grandfather. They were in business together. And which says that, look, things are getting quite busy here and I'm having difficulty handling it. So I need you. So please come immediately. So when my dad gets this cable, he tells Baba, he says, my father has sent this cable. But he then tells Baba, he says, Baba, my father is getting old. And if things get even a little busy, he gets a little flustered. So that's why he sent this cable. There are enough people there who can handle this. There's nothing much. So there's no need for me to go, he says. Baba says, no. He says, your father sent you a cable. He's asking for your help. You must respect that, he said. So he says, you must go. So poor dad had to leave 2 weeks before he left. Of course, if Baba said, you have to go, you go. Finished. So the next day after Baba left, in the afternoon, sorry, the next day after my dad left, in the afternoon, Baba turns to me and says, now your dad isn't here. Why don't you read the newspaper to me? So I said, okay. Would you like to know how the newspaper was read to Baba? Okay. Uh, he would start he would be interested in the front page, news on the front page, and then international news that was in the paper, and the sports section in the back. Yep, the sports section. And what you would do is you would read the headline on the column to Baba. And if he wanted you to continue, he would go like this, meaning go on. But if he didn't want you to go any further, he was click his fingers and say, let it go. He would click his fingers to draw my attention because my attention would be on the paper. I wasn't watching him, right? So he would click his fingers to draw my attention and say, let it go. So then I would move to the next column. So that way, now I didn't read the headline on every single column on the page. I use my discretion, having heard my dad read the paper to him for many weeks. I sort of got an idea of the things that Baba wanted to hear about. So I use my discretion. I would use the headline. And even when Baba would say, go on and read it, very rarely, I can't remember, in fact, one time when the whole column was ever read to him. I would read sort of like 10%, 15% of the column, and then Baba would click his fingers and say, now move on. So it was like that. And then we would move to the international section. And Baba wouldn't be that much interested in local news, that this accident happened here, this one died, building fell down, something like that. Baba was not too much interested in it. Except if something major was going on in India, he would be interested in it. But otherwise, local news wasn't that much interest. And then after the international news, we went to the sports page. And of course, Baba's favorite sport was cricket. So, and in India, cricket is year-round. So there was some other cricket news in the sports page which Baba would have read to him. And I remember in those days, the Indian team was having an international tournament with the West Indies, in the West Indies, in the Caribbean. And the Indian team wasn't that strong those days, and he was getting a hell of a thrashing from them. And poor Baba, every time he would read the score to him, he would go like this, saying, these poor fellas are so weak. They're no good. They're getting beaten all the time. But he changed that. Now they're much better. Whether that had anything to do with it, God knows, only he knows. So that was how the newspaper was read to him. Occasionally, if I'd mispronounce a word, right, Baba would stop and spell it out. For example, chaos. If for example, I said chaos instead of chaos, Baba would click or clap and stop me. And then he would spell the word out, Chaos. And Iraj would say, that's pronounced chaos. And he would even correct me a few times like that. So it was very nice. It was like a teacher or father instructing his son to read properly. Then we had quite a few opportunities. You see, I forgot to mention that Baba, because of his health, he rarely came into Mandli Hall. He would, even in the mornings, Occasionally, when he did come into Mandi Hall, he wouldn't sit in his nice big upholstered chair that he normally would sit in. He would sit in a more upright with a straight back because I guess it was more comfortable on his hip joint mainly. His hip joint was the thing that was really bothering him a lot. And in the afternoons, I think every day he stayed in his bedroom. He would not come to the side room, to Mandli Hall. So every afternoon we were in his bedroom with him. Papa's bedroom was a decent sized bedroom, but we would just sit on the floor next to him. He would be either sitting on the bed upright with a stool under his feet to support his legs, or he would be lying on his bed. And my dad and I had many opportunities that year to press Baba's legs, where either when he was sitting in the chair or sitting in his bed, or even lying down in his bed, he would ask us to press his legs. So we got a good opportunity to do that. And when my dad left 2 weeks before, now the only three regulars in the afternoon were Irach, Mirji, and myself. Now, Mirji, you all know Mirji is Baba's Mandli. He wasn't residing with him, so he wasn't one of the resident Mandli, but he was clearly one of Baba's close Mandli. Mirji lived in Pune, and he had a business in Pune. And the arrangement was that in the mornings, Mirji would go to his business and attend to whatever he had to do there. And then in the afternoon, after lunch, by 2 o'clock, he would normally be in Guru Prasad because Baba came to the men's side at 2 in the afternoon. Now, occasionally Mirji would be early, so he would come earlier. Occasionally he would be late also, so he would come after 2. So on the one or two occasions or whatever, when he was late, there would be only Erich and myself. And a couple of these occasions, Erich had to attend to something urgently. It was probably correspondence because Erich was like his letters, and if he had to catch the mail, he would have to write it immediately that afternoon. Otherwise, it wouldn't go till the next day. So Baba asked him to, after reading the mail, Baba asked him to leave and attend to that letter urgently. So the first time that happened, Irich was a little skeptical. He sort of, you could tell from the expression on his face, because I was the only one left now with Baba. But Baba said, no, go, it's okay. At the same time that this was going on, the thought comes to me that I'm alone with Baba here. If something happens to him, what do I do? But just as fast as that thought came to me, another thought came to me. But the women are just here because Baba's room was on the women's side and behind his room were the women's room. So I said, all I have to do is shout for Dr. Gaver and she'll be there instantly. So the thought came and went. And after that, I was comfortable with it. So when Erich wasn't there, I would read the newspaper to Baba. And normally by the time I finished reading the paper to Baba, either Erich or Mirji would be back. So it was like that. Normally when Baba left Guru Prasad on the last day, I mentioned he would stop at Ban Garden and sit under Baba Jan's tree over there and allow the Pune Baba lovers to come and have one last glimpse of him before he left. But this year, because of his health, he decided he wasn't going to do that. So instead, he allowed the Pune Baba lovers to come to Guru Prasad that morning, early morning. It wasn't a formal darshan program or anything. They didn't, they didn't bow down to him or take darshan. He didn't allow that. They just came and they gathered there. They gathered in the front portico on the front veranda. And then when Baba was wheeled into the front veranda on the wheelchair, they got one last glimpse of him. And then his chair was lifted up and Baba then sat in the car. But even after he sat in the car, Iraj started announcing the names of people. He said, Baba wants to see so-and-so, Baba wants to see this one. Baba wants to see Rhoda Dubash. My mom's name was announced. So mom went and had a few words with Baba on that day. So like that, he was another 15, 20 minutes sitting in the car asking for different people. And then finally, after all that was over, he left. And that was the last time that the three of us saw Baba physically in his body. Um, After 1965, Baba was in seclusion basically and didn't allow any visits from the public. The only occasion after that was in Dara and Amrit's wedding in 1968. I think it was December, when he allowed a small uh, group of close ones to be invited to Mirazat for the wedding. But other than that, there was no public function of Baba's at all. And in April 1967, I left Karachi to go to England for my further studies, to become a chartered accountant, a CPA. So I wasn't even in Karachi after 1967. So that's where my personal experiences end. As I mentioned before we started, that I didn't have too much left now of my personal experiences. So I will now narrate some incidents that took place in the family related to Baba, and then some other Baba stories. I had a younger brother, Homi. Baba had named him Homi, and he was 3 years younger than me. And in April 1955, he had an accident. He fell from the second floor of our home, fell on his head, smashed his head, and he didn't survive. Now, at that time, Baba had asked the Karachi group to do a continuous repetition of his name, a jap. It was over quite a few days, and it was during this period that Homi's accident happened. Now, my dad's time for the job was 4:30 in the afternoon. They would do half an hour stints each, and then somebody else would take over. And Mum Rhoda was at 5 o'clock. So Naomi's accident took place after lunch, and they rushed him off to the hospital to see if, for treatment and stuff, but the doctors couldn't do anything. And by the time all that was over and they brought Homi's body back home, it was getting to be close to Dad's time to do the job. So my dad, they put Homi in his bed at the house, and my dad tells Rhoda, he says, "Now I'm going to go and do my job, so don't let anybody touch him till I come back." So he goes away, and then close to 5, it was Mom's time, so she goes up. Now I should tell you that my mother Rhoda said that when the doctors announced in the hospital that Homi is no more, she said she was absolutely shocked. And, she was in shock. She said she was walking around like a robot, not knowing what's going on, just functioning like that. But somehow she remembered to go for her job. And she's waiting for my dad's job to finish when Minu Kharas turns up. And Minu says, "I've been looking for you too everywhere, because now lots of people are arriving, family, friends, everybody's coming after hearing of Homi's tragedy. So there are lots of people downstairs and you folks weren't there. So I thought I'd come up here and have a look." So he then tells my mother, Rhoda, he says, "You two go down because these people are there. You need to attend to them also. And I'll take your turn for the job." So my mom says, "No, let me at least start the job. I'll do a few minutes of it, and then you can take over." So Minu said, "Yes." So at 5 o'clock, Mom said when her time was there for the job, she goes into the prayer room, bows down to him, And she says, as she bows down to Baba, she uncontrollably starts weeping. Just, just like that. She said, I don't know what happened, but I just wept and wept for many minutes. But she said, after I stopped weeping, she said, my mind was absolutely now crystal clear. That haze that I was in shock, everything had vanished. And then she says, after that, I was perfectly fine. And in fact, many of my relatives and friends would say, Rhoda, why don't you cry? Why don't you shed a few tears? It'll relieve you, this, that. But she said, I knew that Baba didn't like it. So after that, I didn't cry at all. Now, of course, when something like that happens, Baba is informed. So Baba was informed that Homi had had an accident and he passed away. And few days after that, we received a letter from Dr. Goer in which she wrote that Baba says Homi has come to him and is with him. And we were asked to, my mom and dad were asked to write a letter to Baba, giving some of the details and to send a picture of Homi with it, which they did. And a week or so after that, we received another response. This time it was written by Erach, in which Erach says that Baba with his hands touched Homi, meaning the photo of Homi that was sent. And you two frame the photo and keep it near you. And the photo is there. It was framed. It's still in Mehrabad, in a house in Mehrabad. It's still there. And Iraj says that Baba was really very happy to hear that in spite of your great loss, you did not hesitate to carry out the job that was entrusted to you. Now, my mom, after this happened, quite a while after this happened, my mom says that she recollected a couple of incidents with Homi that happened with Baba. In 1952, when Baba stopped at Karachi airport, we were all allowed to come and have his darshan. And I had my darshan with Baba. Baba greeted me, gave me a nice big hug and everything. But when my mother, Homi was only two or less at less than two at that time, when my mother went to put Homi in Baba's arms, Baba said no. Baba didn't want Homi at that time. The second incident she recollects was that Mom had a very short meeting with Baba in Satara in the early 50s. And at that meeting, Baba turned to her and asked her, would you gladly give me one of your sons? And she said, I thought that Baba meant he would keep one of my sons and maybe as resident Mandli or something like that. So she said very happily, she said, yes, Baba, of course I will, gladly. She said after Homi's incident, she realized what Baba meant. So that's Homi's story. The other thing that we started doing in our family, in fact, my parents started this, was I'll tell you about how they got into, I guess, remembering more and more. In the 50s, when they started going to Baba regularly or frequently, I should say, they were getting more and more attached to him, more closer to him. And after the 1958 Savas, which was the Savas in Mehrabad, the men and women's Savas, my mom says she was sitting at home. My mom, by the way, was a school teacher, so she worked also. My mom says she was sitting at home and she's thinking, we say we love Baba so much. We do this for him. We do anything for him. We give our life for him, all this sort of stuff. But I was thinking, how many times during the day have I remembered him? And she says, when I actually sat and thought about it, it was like 2 or 3 times. So she was quite shocked. So when my dad comes home in the evening, she narrates this to him and says, Adi, we say we love Baba so much and this and that and the other, but how many times today did you remember him? So my dad also thinks, and he says, yeah, you're right. I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 times when I remembered him this today. So she says, we got to do something about this. So my dad says, I remember something that Baba said during the 3 incredible weeks. Now, you normally associate 3 incredible weeks with the Westerners, but there were some Easterners there too. My dad was there, Minukaras was there. There were some other Easterners too. Actually, in some of the 3 incredible weeks photos, you see the Easterners there. What Baba said that he said that I tell you with my divine authority that when you remember me at the time of dying, you will come to me. But then he says, but to do that, you must start now. You must start remembering me now. And he says, how do you do that? He says, first thing in the morning when you get up, just remember me for a few seconds. 12 noon, remember me for a few seconds. And 5 p.m., same thing. Remember me for a few seconds. And last thing at night before going to bed. Now, some of you may have heard this, I'm sure. So they said, my dad said, but when Baba said this, I thought he said it only for the Westerners. So my mom, Rhoda, says, oh, Adi, how can you think like that? It's for all of us. So she said, let's start doing it. So they started doing that. And of course, I brought up with Baba, with them. So I picked it up and I started doing it. And now my wife, Ruby, who was not a Baba lover when she married me, she does it. We remind each other at 5 and 12 that it's 5 or 12 and things like that. But what happens is, when you first start doing that, especially the remembrance at 12 noon and 5 in the evening, you look at your watch and you say, oh, it's only thinking is it 12 o'clock? And it's, oh, it's only 11:30. But you unconsciously remember it. And you do it a number of times because you actually hit 12. So instead of remembering once or twice, you remember him quite a few times, frequently like that. And over time, it builds up slowly, slowly, and you start to remember him regularly. That's what we've done in our family over the years. The next incident I'll mention is the passing of my grandmother, who was nicknamed Mummy. I'd mentioned in my earlier talks that she didn't have good health. She was always had some medical problem or the other. And in June 1964, she had gone to Bombay for treatment. And after getting the treatment and recovery, she came back to Karachi. But literally within days of coming back, she got violently sick again. And the doctors in Karachi checked her and said they suspect she has leukemia. So they only recommended you should go immediately to Bombay to get good treatment. So of course they made the arrangements to go back. And within a few days, they were back in Bombay. They went directly to the hospital. My dad had gone with her this time, so he was staying with her at the hospital. But when my dad got to Bombay, he called his friends over there, the friends that we normally stay with when we're in Bombay, to let them know they're back in Bombay. And the friend says, Adi, there's a letter that's been waiting for you for a day or two. It's from Iraj. Immediately, Dad knew it was from Baba because Baba had been informed that Mummy was now very sick again. The doctors suspected leukemia and she's going back to Bombay. So Baba knew that. So this letter was waiting for Dad. So he asked his friend to bring it to him that evening, which he did. And when Dad read the letter, there were 2 sentences in the letter which he thought gave a clear indication that Mummy's end was near. So he calls Arnavaz and Nariman. Arnavaz and my mom were very close. They were very close, the two of them. So he immediately calls Arnavaz and Nariman. And he says, look, I've got this letter from Baba, and I think the letter is telling me that Mummy's end is near. But I would like you to look at it, please, and tell me what you think. So can you come and visit us this evening? Which they did. when they read the letter, they both agreed that yes, Mummy's time is very near from this letter. And so they confirmed that. So immediately my dad rings his father in Karachi, my grandfather, and says, look, come immediately because Mummy is not in good condition. So my grandfather comes, he has his my dad's younger brother with him, and I think he had one of the daughter-in-laws with him also. They were able to get there the next day, surprisingly, that fast. And in the afternoon, they came to the hospital, they sat and talked with Mummy and were there most of the day, the rest of the day, in fact. And at night, at 10 o'clock, around 10 o'clock, Mummy passed away. So some days after Mummy passed away, my grandfather wasn't a Baba lover. The only Baba lovers in our family was my dad and my grandma. But my grandfather respected Baba, and he always let his wife go whenever she wanted to go to Baba, never restricted her from doing that at all. So my grandfather turns to my dad and says, you know, Adi, when Mummy came to Bombay, the doctors ran a whole bunch of tests and they said the tests would take a few days. And in fact, when you called us, the test results or nothing were known. So why did you call me that urgently saying Mummy is taken a turn for the worse? So my dad says, you know, I received a letter from Mir Baba. And in the letter, Baba had given a clear indication that Granny's end was near. So my grandfather simply nodded and acknowledged that. The next story is a small one, very small snippet. After Baba passed away, my parents decided to give a photo of Baba to, and now I can't remember exactly whether the photo was given to Mira or the women Mandli, but it was given to the Mandli. It was a big photo of Baba on Arthur's seat, the one behind Betty, that one, right? It's quite, I think it was 8 by 10 or bigger photo, and it was framed. But they wanted to have it colored because in those days, most of the photos were black and white. So my mother takes it, decides she'd get it painted by a Parsi lady in Karachi who was renowned for her paintings and things like that. So she takes it to the lady and tells her that, you know, this is a photo of Mir Baba. The lady knew about Mir Baba. She wasn't a Baba lover, but she knew about him. And, you know, I want it painted. And please do a nice job, make it look very realistic and things. And she said, yes, I'll have it ready in a week. So a week passes, mom goes, and the picture's ready, all painted. And she said it was very nice, very natural, really good, well done. So the lady says, you know, Rhoda, I have a story to tell you. She says, after you gave me the painting, the next day, I started work on it. So I took my paints and I started applying the paint, but the paint wouldn't take on the photo. So I tried once, I tried twice, 3 times. Then I gave up. I tried it the next day, the day after. She said, nothing. It just paint would just not take on the photo. It just wouldn't stay on the photo. So she said, now I was getting a little concerned because I told you it'd be ready in a week or so. So she says, I turned to your Meher Baba. She says, your Meher Baba. And I implored him that, Baba, you are a great man. Please help me with this photo. And she says, the day after, when I started to paint again, she says, the paint took and it worked. So that painting today is, or that photograph, I should say, is today in Baba's bedroom in Mirazad. When you actually walk up the steps, right opposite you, there's a little dresser or side or chest of drawers type of piece of furniture, which has Baba's hair on it, laminated in plastic. And on that, I think it's on that dresser, there's this photo of Baba on Arthur's seat, which is a colored picture. That's the picture there. Now, you might be interested in knowing some of Baba's ways, what he did, what he liked, didn't like. So I'll mention some things about that. Baba had this habit of his fingers would always be moving like that. You must have heard of that, right? His fingers were always moving. Rarely were they still. On this, he would have, when they rested on the chair, they would always be moving. And Baba would continue talking to everybody. But there were times when it would get so intense that the fingers would be moving frantically. And all of a sudden, you'd notice that Baba is not really paying attention to anybody. He's got this blank stare on his face and he's looking straight out to nothing. And at that time, the Mandli would tell us that Baba is now doing some important work. So the whole room would become quiet. Doesn't matter whether there were 15, 20, 30 people in the room, the whole room would become quiet and be absolutely pin drop silence while Baba was doing his work. And this would continue maybe for a couple of minutes, sometimes longer. And then when Baba would finish, you could tell because all of a sudden from that blank stare, look on his face where he was just looking into nowhere, he would his head would move and he would look at the people and then you would know that now Baba is finished and then we would go back to normal. This happened off and on, quite often. I wouldn't say frequently, but quite often. The other thing some people may not know uh, is that, Baba's dictation was from his alphabet board and from his gestures, A, B, C, it was all on the English alphabet. So when Baba dictated whether it was on the board or by gestures, he didn't only dictate in English, he dictated in 3 languages. It was either English, Gujarati, or Hindi. And he would spell the Gujarati word uh, in English. I don't know, think of a Gujarati word, Gaur.
Oh, you're taking me off guard. Kemcho.
Yeah, Kem Chow means how are you? So it'll be Kem, Kem Chow, Chau, or O, or whatever, like that. So Iraj always had to be on his toes to figure out first what language Baba is dictating in. And then after that, even if Baba was dictating in English, sometimes he would throw in a few Gujarati words or a few Hindi words, or vice versa, dictating in Gujarati, throw in English words. So Iraj was always kept on his toes to figure out what is Baba saying and what language is he using. It was funny because I was in Myrtle Beach, 4 or 5 years ago, and we were talking to some people. They were old Baba lovers, actually, been with Baba a long time. And they didn't realize this. They thought Baba always dictated in English only. I said, no, that's not right. He used any one of 3 languages. In fact, there was a small little incident that I remember about this, that we were sitting in Guru Prasad in the afternoon. And very few people were there at that time. I think it was with Baba. There were others around, but they weren't in the room for whatever reason. And in the room, the only Mandli person was Meherji. And there was the twins, myself, and 2 or 3 other people. And Baba was just chatting with us. And Meherji was doing the translation. And then Baba came to one word, and Meherji couldn't pick it up. Baba did it once, twice, then Baba slowed down. Mirji still couldn't pick it up. So now, when you would have thought that by now Baba would start to get frustrated, but he was so patient when he would dictate. Even with Erat sometimes, if it was a very important discourse or something, Baba would have to repeat the words 2 or 3 times before Erat even picked it up. So he slowed it down, so much so that even the rest of us who were sitting there could read it. So Baba went P, Pichka, and I picked it up all of a sudden. I said, Pichkari. Now, Pichkari is a Gujarati word meaning spurt, like a spurt of water, for example. So, Baba could use any of those three languages when he was dictating. You had to really be on your toes, and in context, you had to figure it out. You may know this, that Baba did not like any breeze, or he didn't like cold. I mean, the cold weather, not much you can do to avoid it. But Baba didn't like any breeze at all. The slightest of breeze, and Baba would say, close the door, close the window. And don't forget, I'm talking, this is May and June, which are the hottest months of the year in India. In the men's side Mandli hall, there were two doors leading up to the outside veranda. And the door behind Baba, if there was the slightest breeze from them, he would often have that closed. He would say, shut it, there's a breeze coming. But this also reminds me of a story. I think Irach mentioned the story. That one year Baba was going for a darshan program somewhere, and he was taking quite a few of the mandi with him. They were going by train, of course. It was in the hot summer months. It was a hot summer. And Meherji approaches Baba and says, Baba, every time we go third class, we go all cramped up, smelly people, this, that, they're unwashed, the animals with them, we don't have room to sit. Baba, let me at least buy AC tickets, AC meaning air-conditioned bogie tickets for this trip. So Baba said, no, third class is okay. But Meherji kept insisting, and Baba kept saying no. Finally, after a few rounds of this, Baba gave up and says, okay, buy AC tickets. So Meherji bought air-conditioned bogie tickets for them. So on the day of the trip, they all go in the train. And in India, in May and June, even the nights are hot. I mean, you need relief at night also. It's not like you get relief here in the night. It is very hot nights. So when the Mandli walked into the air-conditioned bogie, they were like, oh, this is good, really nice and cool. They were really pleased. They had the whole bogie to themselves. It was reserved for them only, nobody else. So the train starts. This was in the morning. And as the train is going along, Baba turns to Iraj and he does this. This was Baba's sign of cold. He says, so Iraj says, yes, Baba, it's a little cold. The AC is a little on the cool side. Baba didn't like cold, remember? He doesn't like it cool. So Baba says at the next station, go and ask the conductor if he can raise the temperature a bit. So Iraj said, okay. Train stops at the station. Iraj goes and talks to the conductor and comes back. So Baba said, so what happened? So he says, Baba, the conductor says there are only two controls. One is off and one is on. That's it. Nothing else. So Baba says, never mind, leave it. I'll be okay. Never mind. So train starts again. Now, Iraj is very perceptive of how Baba feels because he's been with him so long. He can tell by looking at him. So Iraj says that I could sense by looking at Baba that he was cold. He wasn't comfortable. So he tells Baba, he says, Baba, I can tell you're not feeling comfortable. You find this a little cold. At the next station, let me go to the conductor and tell him to turn it off. So Baba said, no, it'll get too hot with this hot sun and everything. And the Mandli over here, they won't be able to tolerate it. It'll get too hot for them. They'll be very uncomfortable. And Iraj says, no, Baba, they're the Mandli. If to please you, they will tolerate anything. Baba says, no, they won't like it. So this little discussion goes back and forth. Finally, Baba agrees and says, okay, you go and tell the conductor to turn it off. So the next station, Iraj goes and asks the conductor to turn it off. Now, so it's off. Now in India, Air-conditioned bogie means that it's a sealed bogie. They have windows, you can see out, but the windows are all sealed, they don't open. The only openings are the two doors at either end that you can go out to get out of the train. And he says now as the day progresses, you get into late morning, the sun gets hotter. Now the bogie is starting to heat up. And slowly the Manli, first they take their shirts off, the shirts come off. He says, as it gets closer to the afternoon and into the afternoon, he says they then take their vests off. In India, they wear vests in the summer to absorb the perspiration. So the vests come off. He says as it gets into afternoon, it really the bogie really starts to get heated up. He says now the pants come off, he says. So now everybody in the compartment, all the men Mandi in the compartment, apart from Baba, are in their undershorts. And Baba is sitting there, he says, in his chair, in his sadra. Baba is quite comfortable. He says you could hardly see a bead or two of sweat on him. Baba is quite comfortable in this heat. But now for the Mandli, this was getting under. He said, the older Mandli, they were starting to have difficulty breathing because the temperature was getting really oppressive. So it was a most uncomfortable journey for them. Very uncomfortable. Finally, they get to their destination. And Iraj said that after this incident, no one ever suggested to Baba to take AC or first class. We always went third class after that. Always third class after this incident. So, what else do I have to tell you? Yeah, Baba would always say that when the time is right, the person comes to me, or I come to that person. Well, I have two stories about that actually. One was an old man about an old man in Andhra when Baba was doing his darshan programs in Andhra in the 50s. I don't know which town it was in. It was in a town. And Baba was having a darshan program there. And this old man was untouchable, a Harijan, Dalit, what they call today. And he lived in a little hovel. He was very poor in the rundown part of the town. And the organizers had put posters up about Baba's Darshan program. So the poster had, details of where it was and when it was going to be, but it also had a picture of Baba on the poster. So the man looks at the poster and the picture of Baba really gets to him. And he really becomes obsessed now with, he really wants to see Baba. He wants to go to the darshan program. But he's an untouchable. In those days, the caste system was so tough, especially in the South. Untouchables wouldn't mingle with the crowd, but that he could handle. He could stay far away from them and still see Baba. But in those days, as I say, it was so severe that even if a shadow crossed the shadow of another person, they could get incensed and beat him. It was that bad. So although this man had this great urge to go to the program to see Baba because he really wanted to see Baba, he thought to himself that how will I avoid this if my shadow, in a big gathering like that, my shadow will definitely cross somebody and then I'll get beaten. So that wouldn't be good. So the poor fellow decides to stay home. And he's sitting there and he's very saddened by the fact that he couldn't have Mir Baba's darshan. Now, when Baba would go to places like that, especially somewhere that he hadn't been before, the programs would normally be in the morning or the afternoon. By late afternoon, everything would be over. So the evening would be free. And quite often in the evening, Baba would say, let's go for a drive. So they would pile into 2 or 3 cars and go for a drive. And the Mandli would say that sometimes, even if Baba hadn't been to that city, he would direct the driver, turn left here, turn right there, like he knew exactly where he was going. And on this occasion, he did just that. He said, turn right here, left here, here, and stop here. So the car, Baba stopped the car right opposite the hovel of this old man who couldn't go to the program. And they said the old man was sitting outside. He sees this car pull up, which is unusual because this was a very, very poor neighborhood. And Baba opens the door, jumps out, and Baba walked fast in those days. Before the old man realized it, Baba walked past him and into his hovel, and the man recognized, he said, this is Mehr Baba, the one I wanted to see. So Baba had come to his hovel. He went into his hovel, he sat there, gave the man his darshan, stayed there a few minutes, and left. That's one story. The other one is a story that took place in Madras, which is today Chennai. Again, Baba was giving darshan programs. And in the evening, he said, let's go for a drive. So, and once again, the Manli said, Baba directed the driver exactly, turn here, turn left here, turn right here. And he stopped the car. He stopped the car in front of a 2-story house. Baba got out of the car, walked up to the 2nd story, stood outside the door and asked the Mandli to open the door. They opened the door, it was open. So they were able to open it. They said they go into a room which was dimly lit. On one side of the room, there was a man sitting on the floor. And when they looked around the room, there were photos of past avatars, Sadgurus, saints, all spiritual personalities. And on one side of the room, there was an empty chair. Baba goes into the room and directly and sits in the chair. Now, the man who was in the room was obviously taken by surprise, but this happened very fast. But as soon as Baba sat in the chair, he burst out crying uncontrollably. And he went to Baba and he kept saying, I know who you are. I know who you are. I know who you are. And Baba allows him to take his darshan. And then after sitting there for a few minutes, he left. And the Mandli said on the way out, this man tells us that this is his prayer room. And he had kept this chair in the prayer room thinking that if the avatar was to take form in this age, he would come and sit in this chair. No one, he said, had ever sat in this chair till Baba came and sat in this chair. That's why he said, I was overcome and I kept saying, I know who you are, I know who you are. Now there's a small little sequel to this story. Baba was obviously in Chennai for a few days giving darshan programs. And quite often to these darshan programs, dignitaries would be invited. You know, like the police chief, the collector, this one, judges, mayor of the city. And a day or two later in one of the darshan programs, when they met the dignitaries, one of them turned out to be this man. It turns out he was the mayor of Madras. So how am I doing for time, Prakash? I guess plenty time still, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least half an hour more. Depends. I mean, we're not constrained by time. I guess there is no program in the immediate.
I guess.
Yeah. So feel free. Yeah. But great stories, though. Thank you so much. Yeah. Wow.
Well, there's another story. This is a story that Iraj told. I don't know. Some of you may have heard these stories. If I do, if you do, I apologize if you've already heard them. Baba was traveling incognito. Normally travels incognito when he travels because he doesn't like people to recognize him because then that attracts too much attention. Of course, he was in 3rd class as usual. But this time the compartment was absolutely jam-packed. People were not only were the seats full, even they have these sleeping berths on top, they were full. People were sitting on the floor, you could hardly walk. It was absolutely jam-packed. And Iraj says there was no room for anybody. And just before the train leaves, an old man turns up with a little child, and he comes to the window and he begs them to take the child in. He says, please, I have to get to this place today. There is no room for any of us in the train, but if you take the child, I'll hang on to the door. They, in the train, they hang on to the door when it's full, and you see them hanging out the door when it gets very crowded. So Baba signals to Iraj and says, take the child in. So Iraj protests. Iraj says, Baba, there's hardly any room. We can hardly sit. There's no room to even stand on the floor. Everybody's sitting there. Where are we going to put the child? Baba says, just take him. So Iraj takes the child. And every time the train stops at the station, the man comes and checks that the child is okay and this and that. So after 2 or 3 stops like this, when the man came, Baba signals to Iraj that. And how would they take the person in the train when it's so jammed? They just pull him in through the window. In those days, they didn't have those bars, the open window. They just pull him in through the window. So Baba signals to Iraj and says, take the old man in also. And he says, Baba, where are we going to put him? We have no space. Again, he protests. Baba said, no, just take him in. So Iraj took him in. And they sat him opposite Baba. Somebody must have given up their space for him to sit there. So now when this happens, the Mandli always keeps the person distracted. They don't want him to focus on Baba because Baba's personality is so strong that after a short time they get attracted to him. And Baba didn't like that. So they start talking to the guy to keep him distracted. So Iraj says, where are you from? Where are you going? This, that, just chit-chatting. The man tells him. Then the man asks Iraj, he says, so where are you people from and where are you going? So Iraj says, we're from Ahmednagar and we're going to see some saint in whatever the town they were going to. I can't remember the place now. So the man says, you foolish people, he says, you are from Ahmednagar? He says, and you're going running after a saint in another town? He says, in Ahmednagar, there is Meher Baba, he says. He's the greatest of them all. Why don't you go and see him? So Iraj made some excuse. And then he says, have you met Meher Baba? So man says, no, what can I tell you? I have tried so many times. But every time I miss him or I get the wrong information and I've never been able to see him. And then the man's station comes and he takes the child and he very, very, thankful to the Mandli for taking him in and taking them in and gives them their thanks and leaves. As the old man leaves, Baba tells Iraj, go after him and tell him that the man sitting opposite him was Meher Baba. So Iraj runs out. The man is already quite a ways ahead. He shouts at him. The fellow waits for him. So Iraj tells him, sir, when you were sitting in the train in the compartment, the man opposite you, that was Meher Baba. So the old man gets absolutely incensed. He says, what? He abuses him. He says, you so and so, you this, you that. You didn't tell me it was Meher Baba. But meanwhile, the train has blown his whistle and it's starting to move. So Iraj said, I had no time to respond or do anything. I just turned around while the man was still abusing me and caught the train. So it's like that with him.
Wow, what a story.
Sorry, someone say something?
No, I said, what a beautiful story, I said. What a great story there.
I have a
Yeah, there are many like that. I mean, I have remembered a few and I've written them down, but there are so many like that. And they're all on the internet, actually. The only trouble is you don't know where they are. You have to search for them like crazy. There are some websites that have a lot of these stories all documented, and you can actually go and see them. Then I have 2 stories about Baba giving orders to people. Now, there was a Baba lover. He's a Baba lover for a long time. He comes regularly to Baba. So one day when he comes to Baba, he says, Baba, I've been thinking. All these years I've been following you and you haven't even given me one order. So Baba says, what's the big deal? There's nothing special about an order. Baba's trying to put him off. He says, order you have to, it's not easy to keep orders also. So nothing big about it. No big deal. So the man says, no, Baba, you must give me an order. Baba trying to dissuade him, but the man doesn't listen. So finally Baba relents and says, okay. So he says, take my name every day at 5 a.m. for 1 hour. So after Baba gives him the order, the man is sitting there and Baba can tell he's not pleased. So Baba says, what's the matter? You don't look too happy. So he says, Baba, at 5 o'clock is my time to do job. Here is God himself telling him, take my name at 5, and he's telling God that my time to do my job. So Baba, of course, Baba wouldn't say, don't be silly or to somebody like that. To somebody close, he'd give him a real firing. But to a normal pilgrim, Baba wouldn't do that. So Baba says, he says, really? Baba appeared to be quite impressed. You do job at 5 o'clock. So he says, what time do you finish? So he said, 7. So okay, he says, take my name at 7. The man goes away happy. Baba turns to Irach and says, this was Baba's sign for destiny. It was not in his destiny to follow my original order. He says the order I gave him will help him. But if he had followed the original order, it would have been much, much more beneficial to him. The second story, similarly, another Baba lover who'd been around for a long time comes to Baba and says, Baba, you haven't given me an order. I've been your follower so long. Please give me an order. So again, Baba tries to dissuade the person, it's not easy. If I give you my order, you must follow it. You can't disobey this, that. There's no need for it. But the man kept insisting. So Baba says, okay, you'll follow my order. He says, yes, Baba, I will follow your order. So, and this man, I think Irach narrated this story. Irach said this man was a vegetarian. He didn't drink alcohol or anything. He was a clean living fellow. So Baba says, okay, since you're insisting, I'll give you some orders. So he tells the man, drink alcohol, eat meat, and consort with prostitutes. Consort with prostitutes. Now, after Baba tells this man, there's this pregnant pause. There was Mandli in the room. This was in Mirazad Mandli Hall. The pregnant pause in the room. The fellow was just absolutely quiet. And then after some time, he bursts out laughing. So Baba says, what are you laughing for? He says, I'm very serious. This is my order. He says, come on, Baba, stop joking with me. Don't pull a practical joke on me, Baba. Please, Baba, stop joking. Baba says, I'm not joking. Look at me. He says, look how serious I am. He says, look at the Mandli. Look how serious they are. Nobody thinks this is a joke. I'm serious. And the fellow keeps saying, no, Baba, come on, please stop joking with me. And this goes back and forth a few times. So finally, Baba says, okay, I know it doesn't look like you're going to follow these orders. So I'll take it back. And then he says, take my name for half an hour, 1 hour, whatever, at such and such a time. And the man is very happy and goes away. Now, Iraj says that after this incident, we noticed that the man kept coming less frequently to Baba. And after some time, he stopped coming at all. It was Baba's habit that if long time Baba lovers hadn't come for a while or he hadn't seen them, he would inquire about them. Do we know about this fellow? Is he keeping good health? Where is he? Baba would always keep track of people like that, his long time lovers. But nobody seemed to know what happened to this fellow. one day in Mirazad Mandli Hall, after Baba finished all the business he had to attend to, he had some free time. So he asked the Mandli, do you have any news to share with me? Which was his normal habit. So one of the Mandli says, yes, Baba, you know that man you were asking about, we got some news about him. So Baba says, what is it? He says, Baba, there's some good news and some bad news. So Baba says, give me the good news first. The good news is, Baba, that he's living in such and such a town, he's in good health and everything's fine with him, and he's well. And Baba said, the bad news? The bad news, Baba, is that we've heard that he's become an alcoholic and he lives with prostitutes. So Baba turns to Iraj. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but Iraj had a photographic memory. He could remember things in detail from years earlier. Very, very sharp mind. So Baba turns to Iraj and says, do you remember? This fellow came here quite a while back and he asked me to give him the orders. And what orders did I give him? He says, I asked him to drink alcohol, eat meat, and consort with prostitutes. Baba said, why did I give him those orders? Because I knew that in this life, his destiny was to do that. And if he had obeyed my orders, none of the sanskaras from these acts would have fallen on him. They would have all fallen on me because it was my order he was following. But the fellow didn't follow my order. He didn't take my order. So now all these sanskaras, which are of the worst type, greed, lust, like that, now he has to work through all that. So that's how it is. In the East, we have a very stereotyped version of getting an order from a spiritual master. It's like, take my name or do this job or do that or give up something you like. These are the standard sort of things we think of. But anything he wants you to do is an order. I mean, one of the orders he gave me was not to ride a bicycle. What has that got to do with spirituality? Nothing. Right? Or not to eat chicken. Again, as far as we're concerned, it has nothing to do with spirituality, but he only knows what the significance of that is.
Mm.
But that the Eastern mind is like that. They have a stereotype of, if you get an order from a spiritual master, it's something like that, So, but anything he tells you is an order. Okay, Prakash,
Yeah, beautiful,
I
beautiful.
will leave it open for questions. There's only about what, 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, Betty has something to ask.
Merwan, you seem to be pretty familiar with Baba's signs. And I've always been looking for his sign for himself. And I thought I found it, but I wondered if do you remember how he refers to himself?
Himself?
Yeah. Or
Do you mean God or himself?
well, I'd like both if they're different.
Well, himself, he would just point to him like that.
Okay,
But
right.
actually, it's interesting you brought that up because, many times when we would be with Baba, like I say, sometimes when we're playing cards, it would get very raucous and loud and be very familiar. The familiarity is there. And from time to time, Baba would remind everybody. He would say, we play cards, we chit chat, talk all the time, we cut jokes, but he would say, never forget who I am. I am God. This was Baba's sign for God.
I can't
I
see
am
it.
God in
Can you
human form.
can you show your hand a little lower so I
Oh.
didn't quite see it?
Okay, hang on. I like this, but you would have hold it a little high above the head. I am God with the fist. I am God.
With fist.
Yeah,
Okay.
just the fist.
Oh, all
But
right.
Baba had different signs, same sign for many things. When he was playing cards, if he did this, it meant the joker, okay? So it was in context of what he's doing, right? So he would say, I am God in
Oh,
human form. Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Diana, go ahead.
Yes, Jay Baba, Merwan.
Ji, Baba.
I have a question. Your mother gave, and this doesn't directly include Baba, but maybe it does, and I just don't remember. Your mother told me about her life in Karachi one time, and apparently she used to play cards with these women who were perhaps the wives of the men your father did business with. And she was trying to explain something about how it was. Apparently, it was really important for her socially to have, to be able to get out and be with people. But I don't remember. I think that she had to not talk about Baba with these women, as far as I know. But I don't know if you weren't there, so you can when she told me the story, so you can't reconstruct it for me. But does that bring something to mind for you about how she lived her life in Karachi outside of the Baba world?
You're talking about this particular woman
Your
or
mother.
generally?
Your mother.
So, I mean, it was, you just be natural with other people. You don't, unless people, normally with us, unless people asked about Baba, we didn't really talk about him. But if they brought up Baba, we would talk about it. Otherwise, we would just naturally interact socially, just like anybody else.
Okay.
And in those days, to tell you the truth, very few people asked about Baba. Today, I notice more and more Parsis, not only in Karachi, but also in Bombay, ask about Baba. They are more interested. But in those days, in fact, if this topic of Mir Baba came up, they would actually try to change the subject. It was the other way around. So rarely would people bring up that, but if they did, they would talk about him. Otherwise, you just interact socially just like anybody else.
Okay, thank you. For some reason, this stuck in my mind for years, and I just have this picture of her playing cards with these women in Karachi.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they probably didn't have. I know with the groups that she played cards with, and they call themselves the Antique Club. They were all oldies.
Oh, did you know those women?
I knew a lot of them, not all of them, but I knew a lot of them.
Okay,
I think most of them are no more probably now. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Meher Kiran, go ahead.
Jai Baba. I have to.
Oh.
Yeah. So, Merwan ji, I noticed the story about the person from Chennai, like he has a chair in his room where he wants the avatar to sit. There is a version of it, little different from what you said, but I just want to bring to your notice. I pasted the link in the chat. There it says that person asked Baba for liberation, and Baba asked, "Why did you ask for anything but not liberation?" When Baba goes to his room, but
That could be. But I only remember what Irach mentioned. Yeah, it could be Irach even mentioned that and I forgot because I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes the mind forgets all sorts of things.
But at the end, it seems that person passed off, and they said he merged in Baba because he
Yeah.
placed his hand. Baba placed his hand on the person's head and says he grants him.
Yeah.
And
And
another,
that's what I said. All these stories they're all on the internet somewhere. I'm almost sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
another addition I wanted to add to that story. Do you know that your father and my father were with Baba when this incident took place?
Yeah,
Because Dad,
in Madras. It was at that trip when they were there. Right.
yes,
Wow.
yes. And Dad would relate this story very often. So
Yeah.
I remember hearing it as a child in our Baba group meetings in Karachi.
And this man is one of the what do you call, somebody
He's the-
special in the town?
He was the mayor of
He was the
Wow.
mayor of Madras.
Okay.
at the
Wow. Beautiful story there. Oh, God. Wow, Merwan, I mean, we really had such a beautiful session today, listening to all those wonderful shares from you. I had the one question. I thought, you know, when Baba had you read the newspaper, or when Baba had anybody read the newspaper, if there is an article, did Baba ever comment on something, or did he have any remarks on what was read, or
Yeah, he would from time to time have a comment on something or the other. Yes, definitely. Like I said, the comment on India and West Indies. Baba would say, these
Okay.
poor guys that, it's not a strong side. They keep getting beaten all the time. But he would have comments on other news also sometimes like that,
Yeah,
off
beautiful.
and on.
Yeah.
Now, if I was there alone, he wouldn't tell me that because it would be too difficult for me to understand. But normally, Erach and Mirji would be there, so he would comment on it and they would translate it, whatever it was.
And one other silly question, maybe. Once says my wife Shailaja and all are doing some a skit about a donkey Champa, the donkey and Mehra and money. And one of the things that came up was, how would Baba say, what would be his gesture for a donkey? Would you know?
No, I don't know.
So,
I don't
I
know.
mean, we had to be creative. I mean, we did whatever, but then we wondered if, and, what would he say? you know, I mean, he had something for Mehra and everybody,
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful.
He
Like,
probably had a gesture for Mastan, I'm sure, but I don't know what it is.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Mastan was his favorite, right? His dog.
yeah.
But Baba said, Baba once was sitting in Guru Prasad, and all of a sudden in Mandi Hall, and all of a sudden he goes like this. And we don't know what he's doing. But what had happened was one of these, those lizards that walk on the ceiling on the wall
Yeah.
had dropped on him. Baba was just dusting it off. So it fell on the carpet and ran away. So Baba then says, very fortunate this lizard, because it touched me. The next incarnation will be in human form.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just like that.
Jump that was. Wow. Wow.
Wow. Betty, go ahead.
Well, Goher brought up the interaction between your two fathers, and it made me wonder about the whole Karachi group. In fact, I'm remembering that there was one point when Baba, maybe it was I heard them say that he never set foot in Karachi or in Pakistan. Can you talk about that? What was that?
No, he never said anything about that
No?
No,
Okay.
no, my father,
specifically.
yeah, right.
Pardon?
But my father Minu noticed that after the 52 accident, when Baba was coming back from Switzerland, he had to make a stop in Karachi because of the strike. The airlines had a strike and there was no direct flight from Europe to Bombay. So they had to make a stop in Karachi. So when they did that, this was 1952, and partition had already taken place. And my father noticed that when the plane landed, Baba was taken from his seat and put in a wheelchair. From the plane to the, down, he was in the wheelchair, and then in the room where he was kept for the day and the night, he was taken from the wheelchair and put on the bed. And then similarly on his departure, the same procedure took place. So my father noticed that he had not set his foot, he did not put his foot down on Pakistan soil.
Baba
So
never
that was,
mentioned anything on that. But
yeah,
before partition, before the two countries were formed, Baba would be in that part of India, which is Pakistan, very frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would be in Karachi, in Quetta, where Gavera and a family, Dr. Gavera and a family were from, Lahore, all over the place, many other places. He would be there regularly. But after the two countries were formed, this was the only visit that he made, and that too just at the airport. And as Gaur said, he never put his foot on Pakistan soil.
yeah, that was just a father's observation. And because he
Yeah.
was against India being partitioned, he had even mentioned that to Gandhi when he met him and so forth, that he was not in favor of India being partitioned.
But Baba actually, I don't know the details of this story, so I could be way out of whack. But at some time when Baba was staying in Lahore, when he was visiting Lahore, which is up north. He sent Aloba to do something. And the spot where Aloba went was where the line was drawn
Oh,
between the two countries. Now, I forget the story, so I can't tell you the details of it. But so he knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
Obviously.
I think very vaguely I remember Baba asked Alaba to drop a dog, which
Yeah,
was
something
probably
something
not,
about a dog, a
yeah,
dead
and
dog.
then,
I think it
yeah,
was
he
dead
just,
also.
yeah, it was a mad dog or something,
Yeah.
something that can harm people.
Yeah.
So he would ask him to take it away and drop it off somewhere. But something happens, and Alaba could not take it beyond a certain point.
Yeah, that's why I say I can't remember the details, but
wow.
the spot he went to was the spot where the line was drawn.
Right.
So are you saying that that Baba was against the partition, or Gandhi?
Baba
Or
was
both?
of India being partitioned. He had said that many times before partition, but of course he knew it was going to happen. So
Yeah. Wow.
it's not
Interesting. And
that he
was there how did the group in Karachi feel about, was it mostly Parsis or were there Muslims as well? The Karachi group?
Mostly Parsis, the odd Muslim. I mean, I think one of them was Bachu, and their family were somehow related to Ramju.
yeah.
Ah,
Ramju's sister was Aisu, right? Was
I
Aisu?
can't remember now. Was Ramju's sister Aisu?
Aisu, I think, was his sister, right? And she was in Karachi with her family.
and were they Parsis or
No,
Muslim?
no, they
Muslims.
were
Oh,
no,
no, Hindu. Oh,
it was
okay.
related to Ramju Abdullah,
Ah, okay. Oh,
right?
wow.
So Aisu, who was Ramju's sister, had her family in Karachi. So she was part of our Baba group, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Either
But
his-
most of the group was Parsis, though, but not all.
And how about now? Is it more?
my God,
Now
there-
there's about 5 people left, I think. And
Really?
they're all with one foot in the grave, all pretty oldies,
Mm.
except for one.
So they're not young?
There's the group is almost gone.
non-exist, all
It's
gone.
dying. It's a dying group,
Really? There are
Yeah,
not young
unfortunately.
Muslim followers? No? Really?
I don't know of any
In
Muslim.
Pakistan, it's very difficult because as soon as you start talking about God in human form, it's
Oh,
blasphemy to
Yeah.
the Muslims.
Right.
And these days, I mean, never mind that, they accuse people of.
Very fanatic there.
So Baba says, Harry, this tape is from the Karachi Baba program, the speech they gave over there. So listen to it. So he says, yes, yes. What did he call Baba?
Pop.
pop or pop?
Pop.
Pop.
Yes, Pops. So the tape is played, and then afterward, Baba says, that was good. And Baba then turns to Harry and says, Harry, what do you think? He says, Pops, I thought they were sort of beating about the bush. They didn't quite say who he was and stuff like that, which is true. That's exactly what they were doing. So Baba says, Harry, you don't understand. He says, if in Pakistan they say God in human form, these people could put their life in danger like that. So Baba also was well aware of it.
Wow. Oh, that's so interesting. Oh.
Baba said you had to be practical in life. So
Yeah.
So it's 12 o'clock here, and let's all remember Baba.
Yep.
So beautiful timing there. So yeah, I mean, anybody else? Any thoughts? Any questions? And Merwan, would you have more stories like this? I mean, there's no need that you should come 2 weeks after on the next Monday. But if you ever gather more things to share,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just let Madeline or Betty know, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah,
Well,
Okay.
hear about Merwan and Goher. Or Go has reminiscences of.
well, we as well. So yeah.
that's another great thing. You both can remind each other of stories, and
Yeah. And
yeah.
with Homi's passing also, that had a great effect on my life, as it turned out. So with Baba, using, because that was the time when he was in seclusion, and the only information that was to come to him by his order was if some close disciple were to pass away. And so when Homi's news of his death reached Baba and he came out of seclusion briefly, that was the time when all the collected correspondence was brought to his attention. And one of them being my father's 5-month-old telegram just mentioned my birth, because that was back in December of 54. So it was on that, subsequently on that occasion, that Baba called his women mandli and ended up naming me after Dr. Gohar. So,
Wow.
so there's so I always thank Hope. So Irach's letter, when he wrote to my father and said, today Baba has, April 21st of 1955, today Baba has named your daughter Gohar, into parentheses, Jewel. You have to thank Homi, our dear Homi's past, for this to have happened, kind of thing. So,
Wow. Wow.
so
Did you know that Homi's name is on the memorial tower?
Yeah, right. I'm not surprised to know that. Yeah.
You know, I didn't know any of this till I became a trustee, and then in one of the meetings we were going to discuss something about the memorial tower, and I got this list of names, and I was flipping through them just out of curiosity to see, and then I saw Homi, and it actually said in brackets Adi Dubash's son. I didn't know he was, and it also had my granny's Nays, her name on the tower as well. I only found out maybe 7-8 years back.
Wow.
I'm not
That reminds me, if Baba talking about Homi and saying that can you give the child to me? It happened to my grandfather.
Yeah.
He was carrying the little one in his hands, his daughter, and Baba said, she is my child. And we never realized till she's 18 when she passed away.
Yeah.
And we found again her name on the memorial tower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
You must have had deep past connections with him.
Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah.
Oh.
So at this time, we'll let Merwan have his lunch, and we'll
Oh,
do the same. Yeah. But thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Merwan. What beautiful stories, and you're a great storyteller. So please come back and share
You should have
more.
heard my mom. She was the storyteller in the family, not me.
Yeah, no, you did great. I mean, I tell you, you transported us to Guru Prasad, and we could visualize mentally. So it was beautiful. Thank you so very much.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, thanks from all of
Okay.
us.
All right.
Avar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Avar
Avar
Baba
Meher
ki
Baba.
Jai.
Avar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Thanks again.
Oh,
Jai Baba.
thank you,
Okay.
Bob.
Jai
We'll-
Baba.
I hope we can be in touch with you. I'll be in touch with both of you. Maybe we can continue a little.